We always think burnout happens because we have too much to do. However, after years of juggling a 9 to 5 on the side hustle, I realized that is not always the case. Burnout doesn't always come from a heavy workload, right? It usually comes from the lack of boundaries. When you do not have boundaries, your energy leaks everywhere, to draining clients, to demanding colleagues, and even to your own unrealistic expectations. So today, we are going to do a deep dive into what I call the soft skills of productivity. I'm going to show you how to set clear, non-negotiable boundaries that protects your peace, your time, and your creativity. Now, setting boundaries is impossible if you do not know what your week looks like. I use my free 7-step weekly reset blueprint to map out my non-negotiable rest blocks even before the week starts. So make sure you comment weekly reset below and I'm going to send it to you, or go to the description box below and download the guide. And if you're a full-time professional with a career and a side hustle looking to build a second or third stream of income without sacrificing your inner peace, hit that subscribe button and let's get your time. Now, before we get into tactics, I want to share my core value with you. My ultimate goal when it comes to productivity isn't necessarily money or status. It is ultimately peace, right? Inner peace regardless of situation. Now, for me, when chaos happens, and it's always going to happen every now and then, unexpected stuff is going to happen. I always seek peace by first going back to the foundation of who I am in Christ. And from that position, I can approach any circumstance or situation clarity and confidence. Now, does it mean I never cry when I am stressed or overwhelmed? Absolutely not. Trust me, I cry. I feel it, but then I consciously, intentionally choose to return back to peace. And the primary vehicle that I use to protect that peace is boundaries. So let's look at the 3 types of boundaries you need to set right. The first one is boundaries with yourself, and that is the vision. Now, for the most part, when we think about boundaries or when we hear boundaries, we always go to, oh, I'm going to tell my boss that I can't work after working hours, right? Or maybe telling your kids you need an hour of quiet. However, the hardest person to set a boundary with is not your boss, it is yourself. You need to set a boundary around your vision. So the first thing you want to do is define your version of success. You need to sit down and have an honest conversation with yourself. What success actually means for you right now? Are you building this specific side hustle or pursuing this specific side hustle because you're actually really invested in, interested and passionate about the craft? Or are you building it because you saw somebody on TikTok say it's the easiest way for you to make 10K every single month? Now, if you are only doing it because it's popping right now, well, you are going to burn out. And that's because when things get hard and the trend is not enough to keep you going. But when you are grounded in a project that you actually care about, that passion becomes a boundary. It gives you the power to say no. For example, I am not going to start a podcast because I really want to write this book. The second thing you want to do to protect your boundaries with yourself or create a boundary with yourself is implement the shiny object filter. When you do not have a boundary with your vision, you suffer from shiny object syndrome. You try to launch a YouTube channel, a coaching business, an Etsy shop, all in the same month. You spread your energy so thin that at the end of the day, nothing is actually going to grow. Now, a boundary with yourself sounds like this. Regardless of what everyone else is launching this week, my number one focus is this. It is a discipline to stay focused and consistent with your craft, even when it feels slow. Now, the third thing is putting that boundary on paper. So you might ask, how do I actually enforce this boundary? The answer is you cannot just think about it, you have to plan it. Right? If you use it to tell your time where to go, other people's emergencies are going to dictate your schedule. And that is exactly why I created the weekly reset blueprint. It is designed to help you filter all of the shiny object noise and actually map out your true priorities for the week. It forces you to ask yourself, does this task actually align with my vision, or is it just a distraction? So comment weekly resets below. I'm going to send it to you, or go to the description box below and download the guide. Now, the second boundary you have to set is around your time and your body. And this is what I call the stop button, right? This starts with how you treat your calendar. The first thing you want to do is you want to learn to honor your appointments. When you set a time block to work on your side hustle, you are making an appointment with yourself. If you constantly ignore that block, if you sit on the couch and you say, I'll just do it tomorrow, you are doing psychological damage. You're simply teaching your brain not to take your schedule seriously. You are subconsciously telling yourself that that side hustle is not really that important, right? Now, if your time block isn't working for you, that is absolutely okay. All you need to do is change it to suit your energy. However, once you set it, you have to honor it. You do not stand up with clients. You do not stand up your boss. So why do you feel like it is okay for you to keep standing up yourself? Now, the second thing when it comes to boundaries that honor your body and time is you want to implement the hard stop rule, because honoring your time also means knowing when to stop. And this is where a lot of high achievers actually struggle. I know I used to struggle with that a lot, and sometimes I still do. So if your deep work time is 2 hours, you want to stop at 2 hours, period. Right. So I know what you might be thinking or feeling during that time. You might feel like, oh, I'm in the zone. I can just add 15 more minutes or 20 more minutes or 10 more minutes, whatever. Trust me, there's always more you could do. Look, your to-do list is never, ever going to be empty. Speaking from experience, if you do not learn hit that stop button and actually stop, that is exactly when exhaustion starts creeping in. You borrow energy from tomorrow to finish the task today, and by the end of the week, you are completely burned out. A boundary means you need to respect the end time as much as you respect the start time. Lastly, you must set boundaries with your body. So we've been conditioned to push through pain, brain fog, and exhaustion. However, if your body says it is time to rest, you need to rest. Rest is not a reward for burning out, right? Rest is not a sign of weakness. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're not doing enough. Rest has to be a non-negotiable part of your system. If you do not schedule your rest, trust me, your body is eventually going to schedule that for you, right? But it's going to come in the form of sickness, burnout, exhaustion. And that right there is a boundary that you cannot negotiate with. So I'm curious, which of this is actually the hardest for you? Is it harder to set boundaries with your boss, with your family, or with yourself? Please share that in the comments. I'd really love to know, because for me, the hardest boundaries for me to say was with myself, right? I really struggle with that. It's still a work in progress, honestly, but it is very, very important. And finally, we are going to go into setting boundaries with others, right? And this is where we're going to talk about the priority ladder. So setting boundaries with your boss, your friends, your family, that could be tricky. But here is a golden rule that you really need to understand and always remember. A boundary means absolutely nothing if you do not communicate it. You cannot be mad at a family member or a friend for interrupting your work session or whatever if you did not tell them that that was your work session. That was the time that is preserved for you to focus. Uncommunicated boundaries just turn into resentment. You have to kindly but firmly tell the people around you what your working hours are and when you are unavailable. So let's talk about the priority ladder. In order for you to effectively communicate these boundaries without drowning in guilt, you need to implement what I call the priority ladder. And this is where you sit down and literally rank the priority of everyone and everything in your life right now. Where does God stand? Where does your spouse or your kids? Where do your friends, your extended family, your co-workers, and even yourself fit on that ladder? That is something you need to figure out, right? Now, when you know your priority ladder, making decisions stop being emotional and start being logical. If a friend asks you to go out on a Thursday night and your side hustle is actually higher on that ladder this season, the answer is going to be a guilt-free no. You realize that you do not need to say yes to everyone and everything all the time. And please hear this, your priority ladder is going to change. In a season of high business growth, your side hustle might temporarily sit above you socializing with extended family. In the season of burnout, self-unrest needs to actually move right to the top, right? And right on the fade. You are allowed to rearrange that ladder when your life changes. And the people who really support you are going to respect your position on that ladder, even if that means they're getting a little less of your time right now. Protecting your peace means protecting your priorities. When you say no to a distraction, you're simply saying yes to your peace. So burnout is not a badge of honor, right? Peace is the ultimate flex. When you set boundaries with your vision, your time, and your relationships, you are able to build a fortress around your goals. So if you need help actually translating these boundaries into an actual schedule that works for your real life, make sure you download my free weekly reset blueprint. It is going to help you plan your week so your peace is protected by design. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and please share with someone who needs a productivity boost and someone who is struggling to set boundaries with their time, with their vision, with their body, with the people around them, right? Thanks again for watching. Please make sure you watch the video on the screen next, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.